Okay, hey guys. So I filmed the first 5 minutes of this a minute ago, and I thought it was going really horribly. So I'm gonna start over now and kind of give you the rundown of what I've done for my Project Rabbit Holes topic. So the other night, I was listening to talk radio while we were in the car with my parents, and something came up on Hannity about a Sergeant Andrew Tahmooressi who crossed the Mexican border with 3 guns in his car and was arrested and charged with like criminal possession of firearms because Mexico has really tight gun laws. And he's been in Mexican prison for 6 months now. Now, he's not just some random person who crossed the border, and that's part of the reason this has become such an issue. He is a retired Marine who served 2 tours in Afghanistan and was promoted to sergeant for his honorable service when his vehicle was blown up by an IED, and he showed, great leadership and everything in that incident. So, some of the issues with this case are that basically the guy just made a mistake. He made a wrong turn. And he was in Tijuana with his buddies, and he was just like having lunch or hanging out there, and he crossed by foot. So he left his car on the U.S. side of the border. So when he crossed back and he got back on the interstate to go back to San Diego where he had just moved and everything, he got on the wrong entrance ramp and ended up going towards Mexico. And the only lane to U-turn out of and go back to the U.S. is all the way on the left. And the way the traffic filtered and the way he ended up, it's all the way on the right. And there's a lot of lanes. If you've ever seen a picture of like where he crossed, it's like 8 lanes. There's like a long wait to get through. And the lanes are divided by concrete barriers so that you can't, illegally just slip by or whatever. So he ended up on the other side of the border, and when the Mexican military detained him at the government checkpoint where they check for illegal substances and all of that, he called 911, and he said, like, I have guns in the car. Can they take my guns? They're trying to take my guns. They can't do that, can they? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know how I got here. And basically, he just got arrested, and he's been in Mexican prison for 6 months now. And the U.S. government has done next to nothing to try to get him out. Where we've always said, or we have as long as I can remember said, that we don't leave our soldiers behind. We don't leave prisoners of war in other countries, and we will ransom and trade and get them back home. Like, there was an incident not too long ago where we traded 5 prisoners from Guantanamo for 1 soldier who was probably a deserter anyway. This guy was an honor Marine. He had served 2 long tours. He had just gotten back home. He had PTSD, and he was going to San Diego to get treated. He was new to the area and all of that good stuff. So he really honestly didn't know where he was going. So my questions with this were not like how it happened or why it happened or anything, but more like, why haven't we done anything? Why hasn't any of the national government really jumped in to help this guy who has received little to no medical treatment for his PTSD? He has been moved to a different prison that's like approved or whatever, but he could obviously get better help in the U.S. where he was before, where they know what he's going through and everything, and he'd been to like a group therapy session or 2 and whatnot. So he's going on trial like this week, I think, to give his story to the judge and everything. And his lawyer is pretty confident that he can get the judge to agree to it because everything points to it just being an honest mistake. He was dealing with his PTSD. The reason he had the guns in the car were A, because he had all of his possessions in the car. He had just moved to San Diego, and he didn't really have a place to stay. And B, because of the PTSD, he felt safer having those weapons with him. To him, they weren't dangerous weapons. They were tools. You know, it's a hammer for a carpenter or a wrench for a plumber is a gun to a Marine. So he's gone through 3 lawyers at this point because with all of his mental issues and whatnot, he's sometimes his own worst enemy. You know, he's trying to get out, or he made like 2 escape attempts or whatever soon after because, you know, he's a military guy. That's his job, you know. Get out, serve your country, blah, 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 blah. So, let's see. Where did that go? Sorry, I have, like, websites pulled up to make sure I keep my story straight. His mother, Jill, has been putting up a fight to get him busted out, or, you know, legally taken out, not actually, like, send in the army. But, she's obviously very concerned for his health, and she was actually on the radio when I was listening, and she said that he's pretty much at his most depressed. You know, there's only so long you can keep up hope, and the Mexican system is a lot slower than ours. So one of the issues that this kind of led me to was if one of our decorated soldiers crosses the Mexican border from the U.S. to Mexico, realizes he's made a mistake, tries to correct it, and still gets arrested, then why is our side of the border being flooded with illegal immigrants who are given asylum and given, you know, pretty much anything they want? You know, they get medical care and they get food from shelters and whatnot. And I'm not saying that, like, you shouldn't help other people or you shouldn't help these people who are poor or trying to get away from a hostile government. But there's only so much you can do. You can only flood the system to a certain extent. And giving asylum to thousands upon thousands of immigrants, it's just not practical when one of our soldiers can't even say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, let me go back. He gets arrested and held for 6 months. So my question is, why, when our governments are supposed to be allies and next door neighbors and all of that, why can we not get one guy back from their government? Why are we stuck with a system and a bunch of bureaucrats, basically, who don't care enough about this one person who's done so much for our country to go and get him back for his mom, for his family, and for himself? So what kind of precedent does it set if we're just going to let him sit there in jail? Yeah, he's being tried. Yeah, he's got lawyers and whatnot. But, you know, there's some kind of influence, isn't there? There's something we can do. And it really concerns me, honestly, that we haven't done anything. That we're just sitting here talking about the issues instead of actually doing something about it. There are a couple representatives who've gotten on the issue, but the vast majority of them are just letting the Mexican government handle it. And, you know, the Mexican government doesn't have the greatest legal track record. Mexico is famous for its legal leniency. You know, how many stories have you heard about Tijuana and everything? And that's where this guy got arrested. So it's a major issue. Hopefully we can get the guy back. Hopefully his PTSD is not so far gone that he can't be helped. And it just really saddens me that we can't get one of our veterans back. And even if he wasn't a veteran, even if he was just some guy who made a mistake, you know, don't we have as a government, have an obligation to our people to protect them? And even if you argue the principle, like ignorance of the law does not exempt you from it, but he wasn't ignorant of the law. He realized that he'd made a mistake. It was just a mistake, and he wasn't posing any imminent threat. He immediately told the Mexican military that he had guns in his car, that he didn't really know where he was, and so I'm just pretty appalled that he's been sitting in jail for 6 months and our government has yet to really take action against that. So that's my Project Rabbit Holes. We'll see where it goes from there. I think probably it's going to lead me to more immigration issues. Those are kind of the questions that are on my mind right now. Like, how are we supposed to deal with illegal immigration into the U.S. if we can't defend our own soldiers and our own people who make mistakes? What kind of precedent does that set if one of us can't make a mistake over there and they come over here and take up American jobs when the unemployment is huge? And there's just a host of issues that have been talked about and rehashed and everything, but it's an ongoing discussion, and so I will probably be looking more into that unless something that I just have to look into more comes up. So thanks, guys.